A real estate agent humiliates a black couple, refusing to show them a house, unaware that they own the company she works for. What began as discrimination ended in the collapse of her career. What happened next will astonish even the most seasoned readers. But let's start from the beginning. Carl and Aisha Robinson, an elegant couple, confidently pulled up to a beautiful house in an upscale neighborhood. Carl, a tall man with a close-cropped haircut, dressed impeccably in a navy blue suit, got out of the car and walked around to open the door for his wife. Aisha, a slender woman with a sleek bob hairstyle, looked flawless in a beige dress and high heels. As they approached the house, they were met by a middle-aged woman with short blonde hair, clutching a folder and a set of keys. Tension flickered across her face as soon as she saw them. "Can I help you?" she asked coldly, crossing her arms. "We have an appointment to view the house," Aisha replied gently with a smile. "I'm sorry, but I don't have you on my schedule," the woman quickly interrupted, not even glancing at their documents. "And besides, the house is already reserved." Carl frowned, pulling out his phone to show her the confirmation. "We had a showing scheduled for 2 p.m. We're running a bit late, but that shouldn't be a problem, right?" The woman glanced at his phone, but scoffed dismissively. "This is unacceptable. I'm already locking up the house." Without giving them a chance to respond, she turned abruptly and hurriedly shut the door. Aisha looked at Carl, her calm expression masking simmering irritation. "That was strange," she said. "Very strange," he agreed. Deciding to stick around, they got back into their car. About 20 minutes later, another family pulled up. A white family dressed more casually. The woman with the keys greeted them warmly, opening the door with a smile. "Did you see that?" Carl asked, watching closely. Aisha nodded. "Let's find out what's going on." Their footsteps echoed louder than expected as they approached the house for a second time. Carl and Aisha walked up to the door, where the other family was happily touring the spacious entryway. The agent, noticing their approach, frowned and stepped onto the porch, closing the door behind her. "I told you, the house is reserved," she said coldly, casting a quick glance at the white family inside. Carl, keeping his composure, responded, "We're not here to cause any trouble. We'd just like an explanation as to why this family is viewing the house when you claimed it was reserved." The agent frowned deeper, clearly annoyed at being challenged. "They had a booking before you. You should look for another property. This house, it's not for you." "Not for us?" Aisha raised an eyebrow. Her voice was steady, but her gaze burned with anger. "And what exactly does that mean?" The agent hesitated but quickly replied, "You don't fit the profile of this neighborhood. The neighbors here value peace and quiet. I think you'd find homes in other areas more suitable." Carl clenched his fists, but refrained from responding immediately. Instead, he pulled out his phone and snapped a photo of the agent with the house in the background. "What are you doing?" the woman asked, alarmed. "Gathering evidence," Carl said calmly. "I'm sure your management will be interested in knowing how you refuse to show homes to potential buyers." The agent's face tightened. She stepped closer and spoke in a more conciliatory tone. "I didn't mean to offend you. It's just that this area has strict rules, and we try to find buyers who—" "Who what?" Aisha interrupted. "Let's be clear. Is this because of our skin color?" "I never said that," the agent snapped, but her voice wavered. Carl pocketed his phone, nodded to Aisha, and wrapped an arm around her shoulders, guiding her back toward their car. "We'll handle this," he said quietly, though his voice carried a steely determination. Once in the car, Carl pulled out his phone and made a call. A few minutes later, he turned to Aisha. "Wait here. Someone is on their way to straighten this out." Aisha glanced once more at the house and the agent standing by the door, then nodded. "I'm waiting." 15 minutes later, a black SUV with tinted windows pulled up in front of the house. The door opened, and out stepped James Brown, a tall man with a commanding presence, dressed in an elegant gray suit. His stern gaze and purposeful stride made it clear he wasn't here to waste time. Susan, standing on the porch, noticed him approaching and paled. She nervously adjusted her blazer and hurried down the steps to meet him, forcing a strained smile. "Mr. Brown, hello," she stammered. "What a surprise to see you here." James gave her a curt nod and walked right past her, heading toward Carl and Aisha, who were waiting near their car. "Sorry for the delay," he said, shaking Carl's hand. "I had to interrupt a meeting to address this situation." Carl nodded. "Thank you, James. It's worth it. What we experienced here is blatant discrimination, and I wanted you to hear about it firsthand." James turned to Susan, his expression growing even colder. "Ms. Watson, care to explain what's going on here?" Susan swallowed hard, struggling to compose herself. "Sir, this is just a misunderstanding. I didn't think this house was a good fit for these clients." "Not a good fit?" James repeated, his voice sharp as ice. "And what exactly made you decide that?" Susan panicked, her eyes darting between James, Carl, and Aisha. "Well, I just wanted to make them aware of the neighborhood's high standards. You know, it has very specific requirements." James raised a hand to silence her. "Let me clarify," he said, fixing her with an unflinching stare. "You decided that Carl and Aisha Robinson weren't suitable for this house without bothering to find out that they are co-owners of the very agency you work for." Susan froze as if struck by lightning, her face turning ashen. "Co-owners?" she whispered. "Yes," James replied firmly, his voice calm but laden with authority. "They are your employers, Miss Watson. You refuse to show a house to the people who help run this company." Susan's mouth opened, but no words came out. She staggered back a step, her legs visibly trembling. I didn't know. This is a mistake," she stammered, her voice shaking. "I didn't mean to offend anyone." Carl stepped forward, his expression calm but steely. "You told us this house was not for us and suggested we look elsewhere. That's not a mistake. That's a deliberate choice, based on your prejudiced assumptions." "That's unacceptable," Aisha added, her voice resolute. "You didn't just refuse to assist us, you insulted us." James looked at Susan with clear disappointment. "Your actions violate not only our agency's policies but also the law. I'll be reporting this incident to HR, and our legal team will address your discriminatory behavior." "Please!" Susan exclaimed, stepping forward desperately. "This was just a misunderstanding. I'll apologize." James shook his head. "Apologies won't fix this. You had the chance to act professionally, and you failed." He turned to Carl and Aisha. "Would you like to see the house? I'll personally give you the tour." "Of course," Carl replied, taking Aisha's hand. They walked past Susan, leaving her standing frozen on the porch. James opened the door and gestured for them to enter. "This incident won't go unnoticed," he said as he closed the door behind them. "I'll ensure nothing like this ever happens again." Susan remained on the porch, watching helplessly as her career unraveled before her eyes. James Brown led Carl and Aisha through the house, showcasing the spacious rooms, the bright kitchen overlooking the garden, and the cozy living room with a fireplace. Every corner seemed perfect for their family. Aisha smiled as she imagined their children playing in the yard, while Carl mentally planned where they'd set up their home office. "The house is stunning," Carl said confidently. "And now I know for sure it's going to be ours." James nodded. "It's yours whenever you're ready. I'll ensure all the paperwork is prepared for signing." As they exited the house, Susan was still standing on the porch, her face pale and her hands clutching a folder like it was her lifeline. "Mr. Robinson, Mrs. Robinson, please," she began. "Let me explain." Aisha looked at her with icy composure. "There's nothing to explain. Your actions speak louder than words." "You left us no choice," Carl added. "We built this agency to fight discrimination, and yet you embodied it." Susan, realizing there was nothing more to say, turned and walked away, her steps hurried yet unsteady. James turned to the couple. "I'll handle her termination and make inclusivity training mandatory for all employees. This will not happen again." "Thank you, James," Carl said. We appreciate it. The next day, the story spread across social media. Aisha posted about the incident, highlighting not just the agent's discriminatory behavior, but also their mission to ensure every client feels welcome, regardless of race, gender, or background. The post quickly went viral, garnering thousands of supportive comments. "This isn't just about our new home," Aisha said as she read the comments. "It's about standing up for everyone who's faced this kind of injustice." Weeks later, Carl and Aisha hosted a housewarming party, inviting friends and colleagues. The home was filled with laughter, conversation, and the delicious aromas of dishes prepared by the family. As the evening wound down, Carl stepped onto the porch and looked up at the stars. "We did it," he said quietly, wrapping an arm around Aisha. "Yes," she replied with a smile. "And we'll keep fighting to make sure stories like this never happen again." That night, their house became more than just a new beginning for the Robinson family. It became a symbol of how resilience and courage can challenge not only individual injustices, but systemic inequities as well.